This is LTV.
Inside Leominster is brought to you in part through the generous support of N.P. Crowley Company Incorporated and by DeCarolis Insurance Agency Incorporated, DeCarolisinsuranceagency.com, and by Enterprise Bank. Enterprise Bank creates success. EnterpriseBanking.com.
Hello and welcome to Inside Leominster. My name is Dean Mazzarella, Mayor for the city, and yes, we're live this afternoon. I know, it's raining. I cursed when we started playing Misty Blue many years ago. It's because it rained on Thursday nights, and it continues. Anyway, this is good for the plants, and we actually received something from the state not long ago that said we were in drought conditions, and they wanted us to put up signs that say drought, that you can't water. And after the first storm, we called and said, can we take those signs down? Like pouring rain, and we got signs up that say drought. Anyway, so what we've done is we've committed our show this afternoon to the new Fairgrounds Bay State Racing project. And it's, you know, in the past, we're in a different world. In the past, the newspaper would write a story, and they'd write another story, and they'd write a couple other stories, and they would get information on, you know, about a project that was coming to town. And they would often have, they actually had one section that was called brickbats. And what was the other one they had? They had a number of things where you could call in or write in and editorials and all of that. Well, the world has changed, and it's now surrounded around social media. So it's not uncommon where at any particular day there's a subject, and from that subject it goes on like forever, and it gets away from the subject, it comes back to the subject, and at the end, pretty much everybody's confused. So Bay State is and Fairgrounds have asked to come on and to explain the project. And is that Art on the phone? Do you know? Oh, it's a caller. Okay, so we're gonna have questions. Because Art, you know, Art from the Art Report is, he's moving. He's moving tomorrow and Saturday, and Art was a great addition to the show here. He wants to work the digital, but things have changed in his life. He's moving in with his kid, but we're not going to let Art go that soon. We'll be able to visit him. We'll drag him back to the show, et cetera. So I just wanted to make sure that wasn't Art. So our phone number isn't any different than it usually is. We post it up there. Yes, there it is. And you can call in and ask a question. And this is how we're going to do it. We'll first introduce everybody that's here, and then we'll allow them to explain the project. I think that's the biggest thing, is explain the project. Tell us what the project is. Tell us what it's about. And then we'll take questions. Is that easy enough? I mean, that's a pretty simple agenda here. So we'll start. Jim, if you want to introduce yourself.
My name is Jim Whitney. My company is Whitney Companies from here in Leominster. And I've been here developing real estate for 30 years, born and raised here.
My name is Brittany Gessner. I'm a civil engineer with VHB, and I specialize in designing and permitting private real estate projects.
Hi, Marty Suberg. I'm the managing partner of Durand and Anastas Environmental Strategies. We are working with Bay State Fairgrounds, and I come to this job from a career in environmental protection with the state.
And good afternoon. I'm Rob Nagy. I'm a director of transportation planning and operations at VHB. I've been doing this for 35 years and look forward to having some discussion about this.
All right. So who's going to explain the project here?
Brittany's going to give an overview of the project.
All right. Give us an overview of the project, and then so let's start off with where it's located. I still have people saying, so where is this? Because again, it's everything's fluid. Everything moves around so fast. And somebody asked me the other day, I've been here a lot of, where is it? And I'm like, it's the former landfill.
Correct.
Which is on Mechanic Street. So we'll start there. Go ahead.
Correct. So the project is a combination of a few sites that includes the former landfill off of Mechanic Street, as well as the Crossroads Office Park immediately adjacent. So for those of you that are familiar with the area, it is immediately adjacent to the Fidelity Bank. Opposite the, you have Cumberland Farms on one side, Fidelity Bank, and then you have the landfill in Crossroads Office Park.
Okay. So what is the project? What are you proposing?
Sure. So there are several components to the project. We are proposing a horse racing track, and that would be located primarily on the former landfill itself. We are also proposing a sports bar, which would be located on the Crossroads Office Park. We are proposing a residential community, which is also located on the Crossroads Office Park. The site would be accessed using the existing signal on the Leominster connector. We would add what we would call a fourth leg or a fourth component to that intersection so that all traffic would come directly off of the highway and enter the site through that signal rather than using the existing city roadways. And you would come onto the site, onto the landfill property to access the horse track, and then you would continue towards the Crossroads Office Park to get to those components of the project.
So Mechanic Street, we call Old Mechanic Street, and then the connector. So you're saying at Nashua and the connector, that's where all the traffic will come in and out.
Correct.
So if I'm coming from Boston, I would be taking a left. So that
Correct.
intersection would probably have to be modified to
Yes.
add lanes. I'm not a traffic expert yet.
We will, yes. We will have to modify that existing signal in the lanes that access it. Today, Crossroads Office Park is accessed from Mechanic Street. That will be cut off in the future, and that entire property can only be accessed from the Leominster connector in the future, except for emergency vehicles.
Right. So that may be, the fire police may say, we need to have an emergency exit in case we have to get in. Disney has an emergency exit or where I don't want to ruin anybody's Disney vacation or anything and start giving you specifics, but they have an emergency area where they have to, come in. You just joined us. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Oh, hi, sorry. My name is Katie Kudzma. I'm a licensed site professional with VHB.
Okay, good. So we got that covered. I know that the traffic was of big concern. So there are, Marty, there are a number of sort of steps to the process of a project like this, and one of them would be a MEPA review. This is what we call it. We did the same. The one I can think offhand is when we did Walmart area. We did a MEPA review. We studied the traffic. We studied the environment. We studied, the capture of water in the parking lots, the release of water, the detention basins, all of that. Is it released into Nashua River? I think is where it goes. That's a process, and that's part of what this team will look at.
Absolutely. It would be, the MEPA process would be part of it. And as you know, the MEPA process gives people an opportunity to really get into the details of the project. State agencies get a first look at it. The citizenry gets a look at it. Municipal offices get a look at it. I know there's been a lot of discussion already,
Right.
But it's another opportunity through the filing of what's called an environmental notification form and then an environmental impact review. And that will also help shape whatever additional permitting is needed by state agencies moving forward. So it is really an opportunity for the proponent, in this case Bay State Fairgrounds, to put all of its information out, have people ask questions, have people make comments, and then refine the planning as it goes through the process.
I mean, you've been on the other side of it, on the government side of it. It's a pretty thorough, and all of you have been involved in MEPA reviews. It's pretty thorough.
Oh, it's very thorough. You will. It's depending on the size of the project, you will get a lot of detailed comments. Like I say, you'll get a lot of government agencies weighing in and asking very specific questions because if there's a permit they need or some kind of other review, this is their chance to really put it out there early to make sure that people are thinking in as much detail as they need to think. So yeah, you will get literally hundreds of pages of comments when you go through a review like that.
So like MassDOT might look at that intersection and say, whoa, hold a minute here. They may have input on how you design that intersection to handle the traffic. So let me just say this, because I've been asked this. Well, why don't you just send off Bay State Fairgrounds off, get all this done, and then come back to the city council? And I think I know the answer, but does anybody want to answer that? Jim, you want to say that?
As a developer, this project was handled the same way we handle all of them. We come up with a conceptual design, preliminary plan, come to the city, come to local boards, get their opinions on it, and then 99% of the time, we go through the stages, the project would get approved so that we know that we're going to have the backing of the city, or that it would fit into their plan. When that gets approved, it's approved with contingencies, and the contingencies are that all other boards and agencies, state agencies, need to sign off.
It's like some of them are simple,
make it
like,
work.
well, we're approving this conditional upon hiring a landscape architect.
Correct.
We're approving this conditional upon having somebody maintain the landscape.
Right.
No right turnout. All these things are conditions. So in other words, it gets approved with conditions on the project.
Correct.
So what you're saying is, we're not going to go out and spend all this money on all these. MEPA review can't be inexpensive, and all these reviews can't. I mean, all of this work somebody's going to pay for, and then come back and find out whether or not it's going to pass, the zoning.
Right, a
whatever.
project this size, we'd spend hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of dollars on the permitting part of it, just because the process takes so long. I mean, the MEPA process will be over a year's time to be able to get this done. So we need to know that we're going to have something that we're going to come back to, spend the money on it, and usually we would have. There's peer reviews, so we would have our engineers in the decision that would have that the city could hire their peer reviewers. This particular project has DEP, and MassDOT is really they're going to take the last look at it. That's highly unusual when we're doing a project that you'd have the two of them.
Right.
And then Marty would know from his standpoint where they look at it.
Right, yeah, generally agencies, they want to be sure, there's a lot going on.
Right.
At the state level, local levels, they really want to be sure that a project is really the project, and that the landowner and the operator are really there. So, when you're applying for a state permit, they'll ask, have you gotten, or are you in the process of getting all other permits? As a matter of policy, an agency, when I was with the state, I would always want to make sure that the owner of the property was, on board, and that moving forward with the project. It's hard to review a project that, may be more hypothetical.
And so, yeah, I mean, so that takes care of sort of the answering about. So this isn't, I think the misconception because it hasn't been sort of laid out is, well, the city council, right now, all that's before the city council right now is a zoning change. So, in other words, no sense going any further. I mean, you got to be able to do this project in the proper zone. So I think there's some misconception that it's over after that. So that the vote is to change the zoning, and then this is pretty much over with, and then the project starts, and that's the end of that, when in fact there is a lengthy process. That does not include, and I don't know who can speak to that, but that doesn't include the Gaming Commission.
Correct.
And the oversight from yet another authority for this thing. So there's multiple, not just, well, I guess the Gaming Commission is, but there's many looks at this project before they start doing anything.
Are we even at stage one?
No.
You know what I mean? We're not even at stage one yet.
There will be an 18 to 24-month design and permitting process, both with multiple groups at the city level and multiple groups at the state level.
Right. So they'll be in touch with our Board of Health and our various departments and DPW and police and et cetera. So there'll be a lot of that sort of getting the feedback from all public notices.
Right. I think it's important to mention that entire process, getting public input is one of the main goals of it. The MEPA review process is at least a 12-month process. It's at least a 3-step process. Mm-hmm. And during all of that, the state is forcing us to encourage public outreach and public input. We will have to host public meetings. We will have to solicit input. We will have to take that into consideration, modify our project accordingly. There will be at least 3 steps where we will be putting stuff out into the public, getting their input, and bringing it back. And that's just at the MEPA review level. There's also multiple public hearings at the local level. We will be soliciting public input. So the goal is over the next 18 to 24 months, while we're designing, to be working with the public, seeing what they want us to incorporate and incorporating it into the project well before the project starts.
And that's a side of the host agreement. And let me just speak to that because there's a lot of confusion about host agreements. So the host agreement is really sort of an executive piece. So that it would be, the mayor or the town manager or whatever it might be. And when we were bidding for the casino, I negotiated a host agreement. The purpose of the host agreement, obviously, is how is this beneficial to the city? Also what it does is it lets everyone know. It's sort of a disclaimer. I'm showing you that if, the word is if, this all makes through this 24-month process, if it makes it through, this is what the taxpayers and residents of the city can expect. So, for instance, and this is just a for instance because it's still in a draft form, we haven't signed off on it yet, the city would get $300,000. So in that, we have a deficiency in building a new school. My thing would be that first $300,000 goes towards the debt service for building that school. $250,000, these are just a few things. $250,000, and I'm using this as a what if this passes muster and there's permit issued and they get start their work, the clock starts ticking. $250,000 for disabled, elderly, and veterans to sort of keep their tax bills affordable. One of the biggest things right now in the city is there's a lot of pressure, and people might have, we're living longer. I hope I'm with them, but we're living longer. And people might have retired 20 years ago, and their tax bill was maybe half of that, if not less. Well, incrementally, taxes keep going up, yet their fixed income isn't following. So people say, well, why don't you sell your house and move to an apartment complex, or why don't you sell your house and move to a condo, or why don't you build it? Because it's a family house. I've learned this. Trust me, I've had these conversations like, hey, why don't you just get a smaller apartment? That's great stuff. You don't have to worry. Get rid of all your stuff. Move in a small apartment. You'll love it. And they're like, no, this is our family house. This is where our memories are. And it's our choice. And we really like to stay in our house. So some of that would benefit that. Obviously, the cost of any improvements to intersections and roadways. You're going to study Mechanic Street. That's part of the MEPA review. We'll be studying Mechanic Street. Right now, we have people come by Go Farm, and they move quicker than they should. We've had plenty of enforcement down there. During the week, when we have backups on Route 2, it's an accident at 190 and Route 2, it starts to back up. People in town, GPS says, take Mechanic Street, get that, we'll get home. We got to get home by 5 o'clock. Dinner's ready. So we'll look at all those things. How can we traffic calm? How can we slow people down if they're going to come through that area? We can work with the state. There are ongoing meetings that we've had about these problems that we have on Route 2. They're well aware of the Route 2, study committee saying, hey, we got to fix some things at 190. Maybe we need lights. We got to slow people down. We got to let them know that 190 meets Route 2, and then it goes down to 2 lanes. So we've got to do a better job at that. And then the other thing I think that's confusing is when these. So I would assume that most of the traffic, and maybe I'm not correct, is going to come for race day. Mm-hmm. Now there's 2. I don't want to speak for anybody. Rob? It's 2 weekends a year is when they're going to have race.
Yeah, so the plan is to have race weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 2 times a year,
right.
Where we'd have an influx of folks coming to watch it, anywhere from 2,000 to maybe even 5,000 folks on the busy one day of the weekend when we have a really fun event going on out there. The rest of the year, 355 days a year, you're just going to see maintenance activities happening at
training, maybe.
Yeah, training and folks coming out to keep the yards and the fields cleaned up, maintained, and then the activity associated with the sports bar and the office park and the commercial elements that are going to be happening there. That'll all be happening, but it's going to be low level stuff. It'll be typical traffic that comes with those types of projects. And again, all of it coming through the Leominster connector signal at Nashua Street. So shutting off the access to Mechanic Street is important in this whole phase here. We heard from a lot of the neighbors out there that there's traffic that's coming here, and there's a concern that's going to come through this. We'll develop a plan that keeps the regular traffic out of there, but especially the event traffic. Right. We're going to work with the city. We're going to work with MassDOT to come up with a traffic management plan to handle all that. Again, most of that traffic is going to be handled internal to the site. You're not going to see a whole lot of it. You see a little bit of activity, but you're not going to see a whole lot of it sort of drifting off and impacting folks outside of that.
And another area, while we hired the same attorney that we used for negotiating our host agreement for the casino, and he's well versed in this. And one of the areas I think that was confusing too is it was actually us that brought up, it was us that said, so all these other days, what are you going to do with this place? It's just you're going to have some training and, you have some racing. It's just going to sit here. Can we use it? And I think it got turned around that they were going to bring in all these other events and everything, and there were going to be concerts and all of that and sound systems. And it was like, no, we're asking, can we use it? And they said, sure, which would you want to do with it? And I said, well, there's a whole, I heard from the community a bunch of things like we don't have enough fields just for practice, for kids to practice sports. We just don't have enough. And there's, so many more sports. There's a league that was looking for space for cricket. Never played it, but I've watched it on video. It looks pretty interesting. There are 4-H clubs. I was just throwing out a bunch of hypotheticals, and the principals were like, well, sure, the place sits here. You may as well use it. Why not? And we're more. So I think it got reversed. It was actually us that asked the question. It wasn't, And this is different from the baseball field proposal, which was to have like concerts there and to have multiple events on multiple nights, because baseball season, 3 different fields. That's a long season, and that included nighttime. This isn't. You're not running at night. As I understand, that was one of the stipulations we had. We're not going to put these giant speakers and sound systems. I think pretty much everybody's got earbuds and phones and everything else.
And on top of that, as far as the events that are going to be there, they'll come to us first, people that want to have an event, and we'll okay it, and then they have to go through a permitting process with the city.
The city to approve the event.
Right, so they can make sure they have the proper details, police, everything is taken care of.
Right.
And if I could just add, Rob, the VHB does the traffic plans for the Patriots Stadium. Mm-hmm. So when he says they'll develop a plan, they've done this several times before.
Right.
And as far as the connector, didn't we do some preliminary reviews as to where the connector is at right now for traffic?
Yeah, no, in our initial conversations with MassDOT and looking at some of the traffic volumes out there, we're confident that there's plenty of capacity out there. Right now it's at about 60% of its capacity during the busy times of the day, during the morning rush hour and evening rush hour.
Yeah, Saturday, Sunday morning, there's nobody out there.
It's much quieter.
I mean, that's the...
Which is when we'll have our 2 biggest events.
Right. And you'll, as far as how, the day of, like, I just so happened, I went day of the Kentucky Derby, I went up to Plainville, and I just said, we just got to watch this to see what happens. Now, I have to say, everybody thought I don't know if they thought last minute we're going to head down to Plainville to watch this thing, or they knew it started at 6. I don't know what time. I didn't watch it. If it starts at 6, and like everybody came at like 5 off. Mm-hmm. There was a little bit of backup coming off 495, but nothing much. 2 cycles and you were in. But in this case, if there are police details that need to be higher, or firefighters, or extra ambulance personnel, paramedics, or whatever, that's at the cost of the proponent, right? That's not going to cost the city any money here as a result. It's not on us, it's really on you. So no loud sound systems, no lights. And I think the other thing is, and I mentioned this to Jim, I said, I went down and I sat at different times of day and I watched traffic, and for some reason, and you might not understand this, but people that are here understand it. If you're coming from Lancaster and you get down to the lights where the Knights of Columbus was, I think there's some, I don't want to stop at the light. And so they take a right at one of the side streets, they go up, they take another right, Howard Street, they go up, take another right on Florence Street, and then a left on St. Cecilia, and then another left on Mechanic Street to avoid the two lights. There's two lights there. You're still going to get a light, and I've timed it. It's less time if you just stop at the light. But again, so well, I mean, some of the things that we've done in some of the other neighborhoods are just traffic calming things. We've kind of narrowed the lanes, different things that you can do to slow people down. And it can't always necessarily stop them, make the lights more efficient so that, but there's never anybody, there's 2 or 3 cars hit at those intersections.
Yeah, and
but,
if I could add to earlier when you were speaking about Mechanic Street, not only are we going to do a review of it, we've committed to do anything that comes up that is recommended to calm the traffic down on Mechanic Street.
I'm just pointing that out because it's my own observation, because I sat there and I'm like, what's going on? Where are these people coming from? Like, there isn't that many people that live up in this area of Florence Street. So I went down and I just kept backing away and I ended up on Lancaster Street, and I'm like, they're like doing this kind of thing here, and for what? And then I realized that to me, in my opinion, they're trying to avoid 2 lights. There's still one, but you can take You can take a right turn at the bottom of the hill to get onto the highway. I'm like, but it's not any less time. I've timed it. Yeah. So anyway, let's take some calls, and then I've got some other questions here from people. And so we ask the question. You can hang up. We'll let them answer it. We'll take the next call, and then I have a bunch here that people sent to. Sent to Scott and LTV. They sent them in advance, and we'll read those because people were working and couldn't call in or didn't feel comfortable calling in. So let's take the first caller. Hello? Whenever you're ready. If you're not ready, we'll, hello? Okay. Until they get the phone straightened out. Are they all set?
I think they hung up.
They hung up. Okay. But we'll take your call, 534-1626. That's 978-534-1626. And this is the thing that comes up all the time. If Gardner and Shirley and all these other communities turned it down, then why do you feel that it's appropriate fit for Leominster? That was the question for anybody that's here who wants to speak to it. I know that you're working for the firm, but I don't know.
I think each community had their own issues. I'm not sure what they were. I'm only dealing with the Leominster one. We felt that this particular location was a great fit for the project. Access-wise, being able to keep green space, that's what was my vision of it when I was looking to develop the apartment project that was on the Crossroads piece. Was what's going to happen with the Leominster landfill. There was no end use. I didn't know what an end use was going to be, and so I went out looking for something that would be an end use that would be beneficial to the entire community. That's how Bay State ended up here.
Okay. Caller, you have a question?
Hi, yes, I was just following, I was listening to the presentation. I wasn't aware of the fact that there's only going to be a few race weekends a year. My biggest concern is traffic, but it sounds like that's going to be well managed. I also wasn't aware that all traffic will be directed on and off the connector. So I wish I actually had a question. Yeah, I think it's an awesome idea. Just up a lighted piece of thing that, isn't too great to look at. Pumping lights at that area. So, appreciate the opportunity.
Sure. Thank you. So I guess people try to understand when you throw a number out and you say, well, there'll be 2,000 or 4,000 people there. Is that all day? So I may want to go there because I might want to go there and a few races and leave. And then some people, maybe they're all day. So when you kick out a number, nobody knows what that relates to. So I know what turkey game is at Doyle Field, Thanksgiving game. I know what that's like. I know what Christmas and a holiday rush is at the mall. Or should I say, the days when the mall was, you couldn't find a parking spot in there. and we knew how many times that parking lot empty. So I think one of the things is grasping that. How many cars will be in there is it like, there's 800 parking spots? Is that the number? Mm-hmm. And will those 800 parking spots be full at all times? Like, I went by another similar operation, and it was half empty. And there was some traffic going in and out, and I'm not sure, I didn't stay for any races or anything. I was just like, all these parking spots, dude. Do you need all? I know when we're looking at casinos, I went out to Pennsylvania. I went to a bunch of places, and it seemed like on the weekends, it seemed like it was busy. And then on a weekday, it was like, all these parking spots, there's nobody here. So what is, how many cars, in other words, and what's the comparison? That's the thing. It's like, how many people are we talking about?
Yeah, so it's a good question. It's a good observation. First and foremost, the special events will be ticketed events. It's not going to be something where you can just decide on a Saturday morning, I want to go to the races.
Really?
And didn't buy a ticket. You know, I want to make
sure. So you have to have a ticket.
You need to make sure. Yeah, that's a way that we can sort of control and make sure that our numbers are not going, out of control. So
interesting.
Sell up to 5,000 tickets. That'll be all controlled by the Gaming Commission as well. And the numbers will all be sort of worked into that. As you think about the traffic numbers that go along with 2,000 people coming or 5,000 people coming, it's pretty well established in watching a bunch of different facilities like this, whether they're small, concert venues or horse tracks themselves, or the old days, the old dog tracks. You're typically getting somewhere between 2.5 or 3.5 people in a car that come there. Nobody's coming by themselves. They're coming with friends. They're
so they're not coming with 5,000 cars.
No, it's not going to be 5,000 cars. It'll probably be a third of that. You're looking at about 1,000, 1,200, maybe even 1,500 cars over the course of the full day that'd be coming to the facility.
So like the Kentucky Derby, that was. I don't know what time it was. Let's say 6 o'clock.
Yep.
So everybody's coming in at 6 o'clock. They may have stayed because there's a casino in Plainville. I don't know if they had any other horse races, and so they show up for one thing and leave, right? This is not the case.
No, you'll have multiple races happening here over the course of the day, and like I said, it's an event. If you think of the Kentucky Derby itself down at Churchill Downs,
right.
You've got people that are showing up in the morning and they're enjoying their day out there. They're watching not just one race; they're watching several races,
right.
maybe the whole card. Could there be 5 or 6 races that happen out here over the course of the day? Most likely on the good days, on the premier days. So you'll see people arrive over the course of the morning, and if there's a sort of signature event that happens at the afternoon, at the last race of the day or one of the last, that's when you'd expect to see most of the people. And when it's time to go, some will hang out at the sports bar, some will decide that it's time to go and they'll get in their car. You'll actually probably see the biggest surge of traffic at the end of the event when everybody decides to head on home, because there really isn't anything else to do at the facility other than maybe go, enjoy a meal at the bar.
Caller, you have a question?
I do have a question, but also I'm interested in asking telling that I think it would be wonderful for us to walk so much right faster. We need to do something downtown here. We have all these events, for this year. Speaking of and from our end, retired.
I'm not. I can't.
We walk so much right, please.
I can't hear any of it.
I know. He has to turn down the volume on his TV.
I'm sorry. We walk so much right past, please. I'm just wondering what a time of the choice. I think we don't have any other choice.
Turn his TV down. It's interference.
Yeah, can you turn your TV down?
I don't have my TV.
He doesn't have his TV on. It's then we can't. Maybe call back. We'll hold the line open for you if you want to call back. It's all chopped up, and the last call was too. So I'm not sure what is going on. But if you call back, all I heard is about the tax base.
Get the question.
Oh, okay. Get the question. Yeah, you guys can get the question and then read it to us. The other thing is, there are a lot of, and I've said this right along, there are people who have, gambling addiction in their families or anything. I'm not going to argue with that. That's a personal thing. That's important to them, and I get it. And then there's the issue of cruelty to animals. And there are many activists who are involved with this that come from local and far away. They, as I looked through all the notes, they pretty much showed up in every single venue where this was proposed. And their concern is the treatment. And I think most people are, well, how are these horses treated? I think that's of a big concern.
Yeah.
And isn't even that regulated from what I've seen?
Highly regulated. If you look at if you just look at the legislation that was passed in order to get this license, HISA that was put in place to take care of the horses, the anti-doping. My partner in Bay State was actually one of the proponents that got that going. He was a big part of that. We have his bio that's on the website. You can read through the whole thing. But the legislation, the way these horses are treated, it's incredible. You can't do anything. You lose the license for the gambling part of it if you do. They're treated better than kids in most cases.
The other thing I wanted to say is, I remember the conversation when we went down for the final decision on the casino. And it was at the convention center. And a lot of the talk was that they already had racing in Plainville. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the way it was set up, this was set up by the legislature to allow gaming in Massachusetts. Correct. And a portion of the money goes to the state by law, a portion goes to the host community, and then a portion went to horse breeding.
Correct.
So clearly there was an appetite to keep horse racing, if you're breeding horses, thoroughbreds, to keep horse racing alive in Massachusetts. This wasn't anybody who's proposing this, wasn't their idea to do this. Am I correct?
Yes, and I think one of the big misconceptions out there is right now there's an account that has $20-something million in it. And that account is being built up from the gambling that's happening at other casinos in the state. And that money, if this track gets approved, that money gets released to horse breeders. It gets released to the whole industry to help bring those back up. That's not money that we get to use in order to build the track. We don't get any of that. That's money that gets released to anybody that's going to breed horses, board and breed horses.
And that's why I don't understand why the pressure isn't on the legislators to change this law. If you know what I'm saying? In other words, if you don't like the law, because you can't do this other piece.
Exactly.
You can't do the gaming piece unless you do this piece. Right. So one goes with the other. You can't do. They're not separate. So what I don't understand is why aren't people flooding the halls of the legislature to say, okay, you can do the gaming thing, we've already approved that, but you got to get rid of this horse racing thing. They're encouraging it, really. I mean, they're saying a portion of the money goes to this because clearly there was a constituency out there that wanted to keep horse racing alive.
The whole industry.
Right. So I didn't come up with this idea. I mean, Anyway, caller, do you have a question?
I don't have a statement. My name is Dawn Michelle. I'm from the north side of Leominster. I just wanted to say I'm in favor of the fairgrounds. Although I'm not so much a gambler, I think it's a great asset to the community. And sought after attraction. And I believe that will be a lead to Leominster. I've been around horses since I was about 8 to 5. And normally thoroughbreds are not abused. And I just wanted to thank you. And it's a pleasure having you as our mayor.
No, thank you. I always say there's 30% of the people unhappy with you every day on a different subject. I'm trying to make everybody happy. I try every day. I'm trying to get to 0. Like, nobody's mad at me today. But anyway, thank you. Yeah, so I've said it. Listen, nobody's getting rich off of me, though. Any one of these. I said it during the casino. I said, I've been down because there's an event, I walk right by the machines, I walk into the event, I leave the event, and I walk out. Nobody's making any money off of me. It's just not my thing. And I also don't golf. But Ryan.
Yeah, and if I could add to it, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a gambler, and I've never been to a horse race. I did go to Saratoga once, a beautiful area, but the way I looked at this project was 2 weekends a year, it's going to be horse racing. The rest of the weekends, it's going to be car shows or a craft show or whatever it's going to be. And some people like horse shows and some people don't. Some people like horse racing, some people don't. This was something I thought would be good for the entire community to be able to use.
And we're not trying to take away, and this comes up, as fast as I say something, somebody comes up with something else. We're not trying to take anything away from Bolton. They have a fairgrounds here. We're not trying to take anything away. And that's another interesting thing. There they are. It's 117. Literally like 117. There's no other roads to get to this place. None. And they'll have your police details, and they have a show down there, and they bring in, I don't know what the car count is. But I do know the car count at the soccer fields. Now, there's no other place to park. You can't park on Route 70. Right? These are just my own observations here that I want other people to consider when trying to get all the information. On Route 70, not one car can get in. There's only one way to get into that complex, and that's on, what is it, Mass Turnpike? I don't know what the name, Lancaster
Which is Mechanic
Turnpike.
Street.
It's basically Mechanic Street. There's only one way to get in and out of there. I didn't realize it, and I went in there one day with one of the maintenance people. There are parking lots all you see from the street is one little parking lot, and you see at the top of the hill. I went in there, and he was telling me how many thousands of people will go in and out of that one little entrance there. So when I say I try to get an understanding of how many, when you say it's 2,000 or 3,000 people, what that means in perspective. So yeah, call it. Do you have a question?
Yeah, can you talk about the potential environmental effect of disturbing the landfill?
Yes.
And the amount of manufacturing waste that's in there and the proximity of the water treatment plant?
Yes.
Marty?
Okay.
Or Katie. Katie can take that too.
Okay, yeah, I'll start, and then we'll turn it over to Katie if that's okay. But
did you have him call in that question? I know who it is because he's a regular caller, but it's not a set-up call. So
okay, yeah, no, and happy to take the question. And, the issue about building on top of landfills, there's two things that I wanted to highlight, and then like I say, if Katie would like to add any details. First, there is a history and a growing history of doing, reusing, repurposing closed landfills. In other words, there are communities that are interested in putting these properties back to productive use. We can think of the athletic center at the University of Connecticut. We could think of the athletic center at the University at UMass in Boston.
These are closed landfills?
Yeah, these are things built on top of closed landfills. The Granite Links golf course in Quincy. We have a shopping center in Danvers that is on top of a former landfill site. It gets to the issue of making sure that there is a comprehensive look done at how you do that. And there is a way, there is a path for review. In addition to the MEPA review, which you talked about, DEP, regulates landfills, both open and closed, and there's something called the post-closure use permit. And what that does is it is designed to take a comprehensive look at both what do we know about the landfill, what do we know about the history, what do we know about how it was closed, and then what do we know about the plans. And it involves a lot of technical work, a lot of engineering work, a lot of resource work to make sure we're aware of all the resources, because everybody shares an interest here in making sure that that closed landfill, continues to be safe and continues to be, that the protections that were put in place when the landfills were closed, remain protective, whatever you're doing on top of it. And again, we have a history of these different types of activities. solar on landfills. Again, you're bringing, hundreds, thousands of solar panels in some cases. All that requires that engineering review. One thing I'd note, and Jim and I have talked about it.
Can I just?
Yeah.
So one of the things that amazes me the most, and I don't mean to get sort of stereotypical or anything, but that as a kid going into Boston constantly for my father's family, behind Alewife or whatever they call it, behind Whole Foods in Cambridge, that used to be a landfill. Like when I grew up, it was a landfill, and then you go there now and it's this big recreation area, and nothing against the people in Cambridge, but I don't know there's any, they were the poster childs for environment as far as I'm concerned. And I don't mean to be stereotypical, but it's them that are going to this park, and it's a busy place. Is that on the landfill, or did I imagine something?
There are parks in Cambridge, Topsfield, Millennium Park off of Route in West Roxbury in Boston.
Worcester.
Then, like I said, you have, a golf course, which has a lot of activity on it, built on top of the...
So you say DEP is going to take an extensive look at this. I don't know if you know this, but as part of our administration capital landfill, we also built a gas collection system. In the old days, surveying was done by, we own all the way up to that piece over there. And so somebody stuck a rod in the ground, and then when somebody asked the question, how much of this land can we fill? Well, up to the rod over there, because that's our property. The city, years ago, filled somebody else's property. And we had to mine that property and clean it out. And I'm sure there were reports on what was in there, because I don't remember, my recollection was there was nothing. There was household hazardous collections, stuff you had from your house and went down and dumped it. That's what I remember. On the other side, I remember somebody saying something about, and I think we got pictures of this, Woodard and Curran was the engineers on this thing, and I'm sure it's all documented. They said they dumped all this hazardous stuff down there, and the guy that bulldozed it over said, I know where it is. And he was right. It was there. And when we got in there, it was rusted barrels and just solid pieces of, whatever it was solid pieces of plastic, which got hauled out and brought to a recycling plant or something. So there's actually so at one time, it's all in my lungs, everything was burnt. There was a constant fire down there. And then I believe it was 1977, DEQE came about, and everything that went into the landfill had to be documented. Is that, I don't know the whole history of it all.
Yeah, no, there's been increased record keeping. DEP pays attention to how much is going in. They have, inspectors and enforcement to make sure the right things are going in. And in a case like this, where it's a closed landfill, there's requirements both for closing it out and capping it, as well as continuing to do monitoring. And one of the things that Jim and I have been talking about. One of the opportunities here is moving forward. You're going to have an opportunity to make sure that when the team is developing the post-closure user plan for DEP to develop, to make sure that we really know everything about the landfill and that the state-of-the-art protections are in place.
So who's going to pay for that?
And that will be,
so you guys are paying for that.
Yeah.
No, I know this. I'm just.
No, I knew where you were going with that. But you have a
So in other words, the state is going to say, the DEP is going to say, look, we may look at this differently if it's this. But since you're going to have people out there and all of this stuff, we're going to look at it. We have Nashua River that's across the street. We want to make sure whatever's discharged into the Nashua River is going to be safe. I mean, all that. And like somebody posted, and this is the opinion of a lot of people, is what part of toxic site don't people understand? So the notion is, I'm going to go and watch some races, and I'm going to get cancer. Or I'm going to get sick from being on the property. That is, believe me, I have had more people say to me, it's a toxic site. If you go to DEP's website, they declare, I don't know if this is true, but this is what people tell me. Like, I went to the site and it's a toxic site. What part of that don't you understand?
Right.
So what do you say to somebody when they say, what part of your union? It's a toxic landfill.
I understand the concern. I would just note that, in addition to landfills, we have other programs designed to bring what used to be contaminated properties back into productive use. Brownfields, that's where the very term comes from, that you're turning it back into something that can be usable again. And there's a lot of work that gets done in terms of figuring out, again, a lot about the landfill, a lot about the uses, and also making sure that, there is some, thoughtful assessment to make sure that people are protected. So that's all part of the process when the Fairgrounds team submits to DEP. They will be taking a look at all of those things to make sure that people know what's going on in terms of the project and the development and protecting public health and safety.
Right. And then another concern is we're going to be putting, well, first of all, you're not putting any buildings on this?
Correct.
All right.
Yeah, I wanted to clarify.
Yes.
So any permanent buildings that are proposed by this project are not proposed on the landfill property.
But I keep hearing over and over that they're going to build on, they're going to dig into the lining, they're going to dig into the...
We will be modifying the grades of the landfill for the grass track. We will be modifying that for the grass, but we are not putting any buildings on the landfill.
And what about the height? So legitimately, after the first meeting that there was, a gentleman lives across the street, he said he heard that they're going to lift this thing up 20 feet.
Sure.
And I said, geez, I'll look at the plan, but I've been told that there's a certain elevation and it's not going any higher than that.
Sure. So the highest existing elevation on the site is on the Mechanic Street side of the landfill, and then it slopes down towards the connector. What we will be doing is raising the elevation on the connector side so that it's a little bit closer in elevation to the Mechanic Street side. It'll still be lower in elevation, but it'll be higher on the connector side than it is today. We will not be significantly raising grade on the Mechanic Street side.
So that's pretty level.
And that's
for the most
right
part.
into the HCA
Yes,
agreement.
it's part of the agreement. And let me just, a footnote, because I was involved in the capping of the landfill and the gas collection system. And I have people telling me, I'm like, was I there or not? Because they're trying to change the narrative as to what I remember. But what I do remember is the reason it's set up the way it is for post-use. Is so we could use it. And that's why there's a certain level, and I think the documents will show that the reason that those gas collection, those things that stick up there, the vents, the reason they were placed where they were, because we weren't sure what we were going to use it for, but it was always our intention. And that was DEP working with us right along. We explained to them that someday we think we're going to do something with this. And as an example, we used, and these are the conversations with DEP, we used the example of in Reading where they have Home Depot and Jordan's on that site, and we said, this is 190, right? I mean, what an opportunity! This is 190 interstate, federal interstate highway. We have Route 12 right aside of it, Route 13, and Route 2, all right here, in 495. What an opportunity. In fact, we've been approached about putting solar, but I got to tell you, it was a very popular thing in Lancaster when they first did it at the golf park. And now, I think most people look at it and say, what a horrible use of the land. So we knew, our intentions, the way we built it, was to have another use for it. Now, it could have been a park, it could have been something else, but DEP right along knew when we submitted our plans that our intentions were to use it for something else that involved people being on the property. So I think, there were a lot of chemical companies in Leominster, there were a lot of plastics, and I think it's easy to kind of create this image that it's a big toxic. Is it a toxic site? Is it like this toxic waste site?
It's a landfill. It's a closed landfill.
Right, but I think what it is, the presumption is that it's like this toxic waste site, and it should be, fenced in, and nobody should get near it, and there's all this stuff like bubbling up out of the ground and stuff. But that's legitimately what people think. Let's take some more questions. Caller, you have a question?
Yes, good afternoon.
Yes.
Nancy Koski here. Been a resident of Leominster for 50 years. Gentlemen, unfortunately, your reputation precedes you. My two-part question, can you tell us who the principal and the associates are of Bay State Racing? And my second part is, would you gentlemen be open to entertaining a debate with people from the no horse racing community where you can, you get both sides of the story? Thank you.
So as far as the owners, it's myself and Richard Fields. We're the two shareholders. There's other shareholders, there's other investors, but we're the two main people in the corporation.
Okay. If there's another call, we'll take another call. When I see another call come in, we take the call. People are like, take more calls. I can't take them if the people don't call in. I don't know what to, I'm even looking at my phone to generate you some calls. Let's see. Please someone call in and ask Dean why he talks like it's a done deal. We just spent an hour explaining it's not a done deal. There are many steps in the process before. So this is going to get a good look from people that are impartial who aren't Leominster, and they're just from the state. Their job is to take an impartial look at this thing, and they're here to protect the residents and the people of the state. That's their job. I've dealt, I don't know how many times with DEP, and these other agencies and MEPA reviews and other reviews. We do it all the time. All right, here's a call. Good. Caller, what's the question?
My question is, really, what is the other choice? It's either this or we have nothing. Our tax base is gone in the city, so it would be more taxes for us. And I'm handicapped, I'm retired, I can't afford that, So, really not so much a question, I guess, as much as a statement, and I really do believe this would be good for the city as well.
Well, if everything goes through, I think the number we have. Now, they're all little different pieces in the host agreement, comes to about 1.3 million a year. But and then there's accelerators, so they do better, we do better, that sort of thing. Yeah. So it could actually be more than that. I like to stay on the conservative side of it. But yeah, it is money that would come back to the taxpayers. It would help elderly, disabled, and veterans with their tax bill. We do have a shortfall for the new Fallbrook School. It would help that. And obviously, you need revenue. Yes, there's no, on that end, there's no question about it. Yes.
Right, I believe that very much so. And on the other end also, all these things we have in the city now are held downtown. And all it does is cause more traffic, more headaches, no parking. But we could bring it up to this area and really open it up for all of us.
Gotcha.
To be able to get there with more parking.
You sound much better than you did last time. Yeah, we could hear every word you said. Thank you.
Oh, good. I'm glad I was able to get back through. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you did. Let's see. This was another question. What happens to all the methane vents down there?
Take that around.
Yeah, sure. So, as part of the engineering and the design for the project, we'd actually be looking at the existing methane collection system, and then if any of the vents need to be moved or the system needs to be modified, a qualified engineer would be redesigning the system. So that collection system will still be operational, and it will just be modified to basically work with the project.
You need a new mayor, one that works for the people. It's a toxic chemical dump site, and yet, I don't know how many times I could say that DEP will take a look. And people say, well, how come you keep talking? Well, do you know anybody else that was involved in the capping of the landfill and the gas collection system that's still around in Leominster to talk about it? That's still, and
I think one of the things.
Well, let me just finish. So we built this gas collection system based on the fact that we're going to get all this methane gas. Do you guys know this? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we built this gas collection system, and within a couple of weeks, I got a phone call. There's not enough methane gas to run the system. Yep. And I said, okay, what does that mean? And they said, well, this was meant to run on X amount of whatever gases that come out of the ground. So what does that mean? It means we're going to have to run a gas line to this. This is true. Are you just nodding your head, or have you seen
we're
this?
aware. We're aware. Yeah.
So they called me and they said, we're going to have to run a gas line to the gas collection system. And I said, like, real gas? And they're like, yeah. I said, to do what? And they said, because that's what it takes to run the system. So we did, and then we had to modify the system so it would collect and then burn off as needed. And I don't know I forget how much it burns off, but so all this methane gas that supposedly was in the ground just wasn't there.
It's not very much.
It's not very much. And in fact, we had somebody come in that wanted to build a gas collection system to make power. And we had somebody else that wanted to put greenhouses up, and they're going to use the methane gas. And once they evaluated it, said, there's hardly any gas that's coming in the ground. We're out of here. We don't want to be part. Caller, what's the question?
So the question is actually more a comment. I'm a lifetime resident of Leominster, and actually I used to be in that dump. I've been down there as a kid when they were dumping toxic materials. Leominster is very unique because of all the plastic tracking. And if you talk to many of the landfills in the area, from Gardner on, they had a problem with rats. So they used to have people from the town, you could just go there as a resident and shoot rats. As a teenager, we used to get on Leominster dump. There were no rats because of the toxic chemicals that were there that are in the ground. So talking to people that have lived in this town that have been at the dump, you need to find those people and ask them what their experiences were. I'd be there and you'd see the Bordens, the Foster Grants dumping the 55-gallon drums there. So there's a lot that's underneath there. And ask yourself why there were no rodents in Leominster. Talk to any of the previous residents that have been in that dump area, and no rodents. In fact, I'm not even sure if there's any rodents around it, which you still expect with a landfill. So that's the comment. There is stuff under there. I know for a fact. And keep in mind, too, that dump used to be a hole in the ground, and so much stuff was dumped in there over the years, and they cap it, they dump more stuff, they cap it. So that grade you talk about, difference between the Mechanic Street and then the Connector Road, that was all at the Connector Road grade back then. And it just kept getting built up with more soil being put on top of the toxic stuff below.
Okay, and again, I think you could go back and look at the records when we had to mine that acre. I think it was an acre, and the record that was all overseen by DEP. So you might want to ask for those records from DEP, and they'll tell you what was in it, if there was any toxics in it. Because we didn't get any reports of toxics that were in it. We were able to actually mine it, and they took it somewhere else. That's
I'd be just ask those questions why there's still no rats in that area.
Wait a minute. I grew up on 6th Street. We were at the landfill constantly, and there were plenty of rats. And there's plenty of people from Leominster that will tell you they went down there and shot rats. So I don't know. We must have been down there at a different time.
All right, just my comment.
No. That's fine. I hate rats. As soon as you talk about rats, I get the creeps. I get the willies.
What I was going to say earlier is there's a perception in the town because of Bordens that this landfill is different than other landfills. They're looking at it more as a brownfield site than they are as a landfill.
And that's easy to be determined, isn't it? Are we going to find that out? That there's, I mean, we know what gets released out of the landfill. Let's talk about that.
The mill cities that are all over the state, have you found in the past that that's what, I mean, they're pretty much all the same types of stuff that came from years ago and got dumped? And I mean, this isn't a brownfield site, it's a landfill.
Katie, maybe could you describe the process that we go through with the post-closure use and what that looks like with DEP?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so the landfill has been closed and it's capped, and there has been monitoring that's actually been going on. Right. So you're required by Mass DEP requires that they actually test the groundwater and monitor that for at least 30 years, and Mass DEP is at their discretion to actually continue that monitoring period. So with this being closed in the 1990s, this monitoring has been occurring for many, many, many years.
We spend about $100,000 a year. I think the health department said we spend about $100,000 a year monitoring.
Right.
Correct.
Right. And so those testing parameters are also, dictated by Mass DEP. So if they're concerned about something that could potentially cause an issue with public health, that's going to be tested for at the landfill over the course of the year. So that's something that's just important to note, is that this is a well-studied site and it was closed properly, and we have there's volumes of documentation on the landfill and the closure process. So it is something that was really well studied to begin with.
And as part of this project, that 30-year monitoring will start all over again, correct?
or be extended in some way.
Right.
In the host agreement, I think we said if this project goes through, it's the responsibility of Bay State and Fairgrounds to pay for the monitoring, because that's $100,000 that we have to pay for every year to keep all that monitoring. And then we get the reports, same as always, but we get the reports, but they pay for that.
And bring it up to current standards, too.
Yes,
So you had
right.
30 year ago, the cap was done 30 years ago. Now we're going to bring it up to current standards, and we're going to pay the $100,000 a year.
So when it got capped, it was 30 years ago, but now you're going to bring it up to
Correct.
to meet the new standards.
Correct.
From today.
Yeah.
Caller, question, please.
Yes. So, I mean, I've been watching the video and the show, and all I hear is the landfill toxic? Is the landfill toxic? You're the mayor of this city. You said you were there from the beginning. Besides being all episodical about, oh, I did this, that, the other thing, do you have actual facts? Has anyone done testing and not just monitoring this methane system you guys did that didn't work? You actually have factual evidence about what is in that is actually toxic to the residents of the town that could possibly get out somehow or whatnot. I mean, with all due respect, you guys say the EPA is going to be overseeing this and the state's going to be overseeing this and the federal government. Well, with all due respect, you can't even keep up on infrastructure in your own damn town. Look at the flooding that happened. I mean, let's get realistic here. A new broom sweeps good the first time. After that, people just say, just brush it under the carpet. You know what I'm saying? So, do we have actual facts and testing, not just monitoring? Has anyone dug down in that landfill to test and see what is actually in there? Not just guessing and saying, I don't know.
I told you, we dug up a section where somebody said they buried chemicals, and we found that. And we also had to clean up somebody's property because we filled it, and we took almost over an acre of landfill out of there. And there was nothing other than, other than what you throw away.
With all due respect,
Yes.
people are human. No one kept logs every single day on what people were dumping in that landfill. It's impossible. I'm in construction. I know how this works, believe me. And no one is doing their job every single day 100%. I just know how it works. So to say if we dug up one section, that landfill is ginormous.
No, I don't know.
People actually digging into this and finding what is actually in there. Because what if there is something really bad and some family gets hurt? What if something accidentally leaks out into the natural river and people die over what? Just some horse races? And I have a question for the proposers. I keep hearing about they're guaranteeing 300 plus jobs, blah, 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 blah. Well, if you're only having 2 races a year, how is that 300 plus jobs? That's a temporary position.
Well, so let me answer the first one. And so are you suggesting that somehow or another somebody's going to get sick from watching the horse races? I'm trying to understand it, that's all. I'm not being sarcastic, but so you're saying that you're worried that somebody's going to get sick from watching the horse racing or from somebody using it for playing soccer or something?
I think he's gone, Dean.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's, if that's the perception, I don't know they can ever answer that question. I think the landfill is capped. They're going to meet all the new standards. I suspect that if DEP thinks people are going to get cancer or anything, it's on them. If it's an EPA thing and they look at this thing and say, what are you going to do with it? I question, why are all those people in Cambridge allowed on the park? Why, as you said, fields and all this stuff. So why? We're going to meet all the new standards here. And I just want to make sure. I say we. You are going to have to meet all those standards, and you've got to get all the approvals. We're not doing any of it. We're going to cooperate and give you the information that we have. Caller, welcome to the show.
Yeah, just a quick question.
Yes.
You know, in the area.
Can you turn it up just a hair? I can't. Yeah, go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
Yeah, every time that you've gone to have a meeting, you've tried to do it just on one side and not let the other people opposed and wanted to go to this to a one-on-one. And it's like you're marketing this How about the people in the community that don't want it? How about looking out for your residents, the people who voted you in? It's like a one-sided deal that you're trying to push. Everything shows the meeting at the school that this is a bad thing, but you overlooked it. You've had this thing here where it's one-sided. Where's looking at the other side? Where's looking at the whole thing?
Yeah, there's a website called Fairgrounds.com thing. Michael Preston is the guy that puts everything up. I invited him on for next week's show because he's the one that puts all the information up that he gathers from everyone. They then take that information and share it. So I invited him on for next week. I'm just trying to get the information out. I'm trying to get the accurate information out. After you listen to all this, you may disagree. People in town are confused. Hold on, excuse me. People in town are confused about what is the project, what's the city getting from this. Are people going to die if they come on here? They're going to get cancer if they come on? I'm just trying to get the information out to you. We haven't had a MEPA review. None of this is done. I'm bringing you up to speed as to what the project is, what they're proposing. I think I did the same thing for the casinos, and people were upset at me at the same thing. I try to act as the facilitator and look at all ends and at least get the information. If somebody can supply us with information saying, listen, see this information? People are going to get cancer. Or see this information about traffic? This information about traffic? Yeah, this is going to be terrible for the area. Then we'll share that information. But I don't have any of that. I get, that this is a toxic website and people are going to die of cancer if they go on. That's what I get. So it's plenty of information. It's nonstop information from the people that are in opposition to it. It's all over Facebook 24/7. In fact, Leominster Unites, that's pretty liberal. They have tens of thousands of people that are members. Stopped it because there was so much. It was over and over, and people are like, I'm fed up with this. I don't want to hear it anymore. So I'm just trying to facilitate this the same way I did when casinos came around, when people wanted to do marijuana facilities and all these other things. I'm just trying to act as a facilitator to get you the information. That's all. Simple as that.
Well, I think that looks like you're the salesman for it. You're not doing anything to the other side. You're pushing it. You're saying how great. Oh, when I was a kid, I was on 6th Street. Be a nice soccer place there and this and that. But you're not doing anything to represent the other side.
MEPA review is going to look at all of this. MEPA is going to look at everything, the traffic, whatever's in the landfill. That's their job. They're going to be the cleansing piece of this thing, to take a look at this thing, to go through it thoroughly. That's their part of it. That's all. I mean, I don't know much more I can say than that. I don't know what they're going to say. I don't know what they're going to say. You don't either. None of us know what they're going to say in this process. We just don't know what they're going to say.
If I could add to that, I'll sit down with anybody and have a professional conversation about questions and answers. What I don't want to get involved in is, we tried to have a neighborhood meeting up at the school, and it turned into people from out of town and people from locally, that it was just a screaming match. Hold on. I'll answer questions for anybody that's got a question, and I'll bring in. I keep hearing that I'm paying people. Yeah, I'm paying a lot of people. A portion of them are right here, but I've paid the professionals, the best professionals in the area, to look at this project like I have every project that I've ever done in the city of Leominster that's created millions of dollars in taxes and hundreds of jobs. The process that I'm doing right now is no different than that one. So if somebody has questions, 1, 2 people, whatever, they want to sit down and they want questions answered, let me know where. But what I won't do is sit in an environment where everybody just wants to yell and scream about something and has no documentation to back it up. So I will talk. You can call anytime you want, and I will sit down and talk to you.
Okay, good luck pitching your plan. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's their, and then people say, well, you should even have allowed this to come in. I'm like, I'm not the rule here. I mean, people come in and propose something, And it's not up to me. I mean, this is a democracy. They have a right to come in and pitch a plan. And
It's
say,
the
look,
same process every time. I've been
every
doing
time
it for
somebody
30
comes
years.
in and there's public input and there's review and peer review and the city has the right. I put in the agreement. The city has the right to hire other people to look at this project for us, even without the MEPA review. That we can hire people to look at all of these things that people have said. So, go ahead, call up. Yes, you have a question?
Yes, hello, is this me?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to have a point of clarification.
Yes.
And the point of clarification, I believe, is the gentleman before, when he was speaking about concerns about health hazards. I think his concern wasn't the immediate concern of that if you're going to the race, you're going to be instantly exposed. That's not factual. I don't believe that to be factual. Obviously, that's not true. I think the concern is that in the long term, the damage from the weight on the landfill from the cars and leveling it to a certain height over time is going to lead to toxins getting into the aquifer and into the environment via the soil and via the waterways. And that in the long term, neighborhood people, residents of Mechanic Street, could potentially have health hazards. So it's not the immediate health hazard, it's the long-term eventual health hazard that he was concerned about. So can you speak to that?
I don't know, Marty, that's your area. I didn't imply that. I wasn't trying to say that, but the landfill's there now, and we've been monitoring it for 30 years. But go ahead.
A legitimate question. That's good. That's good.
And
that might clear up a lot of other questions.
Right. And first of all, there has been a lot of monitoring, as Katie's been talking about over the years. And this is what the DEP post-closure use process is all about. Again, everybody shares the goal of making sure that, protective measures are in place at the landfill site. And so there will be an awful lot of information developed by engineers and other technical experts to look at things like, how the landfill is today. What do we know about the cap? What do we know about the history? What do we know about the activities? What do we know about the weight? And there are engineering solutions that will be proposed as that, and DEP will review that. And as you've noted, landfill projects, the shopping center is an example. That's a lot of weight on a site. There are engineering demonstrations that are going to have to be made to DEP, and I know the team is working on that to make those demonstrations and show that the activity will be protective of what's beneath it.
And the thing is, the process that this goes through is really answering most of the questions tonight, saying, yes, we're going to look at all those things. It's exactly right. Like, who's looking out for those things? I'm not part of the MEPA review process. I'm not the state, and I'm not, but we can bring in other people to take a look at the project. And that's the answer to the question is, we all agree, we don't know, and that's, we don't know, and that's why we're going to go through the process. So we do know. So we don't have somebody saying, there's nothing in the landfill, and then somebody says, it's filled with toxins. We're going to find out.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, as a developer, this is the way we do it all the time. And we might get into a project where, with the landfill and going through the review process, where we find out it's financially not even possible to do the project. But that's the risk that we take by spending all the money to have these reviews done. There's going to be so much reviews, something might come up and we find out it just doesn't work. And that's the end of it. So we're at the very, very beginning stages of this whole process that's a completely public process that everybody can ask their questions and have them answered.
Okay. Caller, do you have a question?
Hi, I'm a Leominster resident, and I'm also a scientist. And I've been listening to the callers for quite a while here. And, it seems like most of their claims are, completely unfounded. They're not based on any data. It's just, hearsay or, what I think might happen. And, that's really not the way this should be done. If you make a claim, it should be based on data. from, the research that you say is going to be done. And anything else is just, completely unfounded. And so I don't even know what we're really doing here. I mean, people are just calling in and making things up, and it really doesn't make any sense to me. So I just wanted to mention that. And additionally, I've been around horse racing all my life, and I really don't see, anything negative that would come from having that in this town. You look at the Kentucky Derby that just happened a few weeks ago. They're having record turnout for people, record wagering, and it's all positive that's going on with that. So I just wanted to mention that's my take on this. So thank you.
And I got to say, if I live across the street, I'm going to be of concern.
Absolutely.
At one time, I can remember the days when trash just blew from it went into the cemetery, and Father Dunaway coming down to the city council meetings and saying, when is this going to stop? The cemetery's, believe me, I get it. And that is why, for anybody that comes in to do a project, like you got to communicate with the neighbors. You got to let them know what you're doing, even if they don't agree. You got to let them know what you're going to do. You got to be open, transparent, bring them through the process so that they understand what's going on. Just a comment here. It says Leominster Unites is that Facebook page, and is not a fair group. Your admins run it. None of my administration runs Leominster Unites, so you could take that's not the case. Caller, what's your question?
Hello. So you had mentioned that Bay State will be responsible or liable for any environmental harm caused by their construction on the site. If the operation becomes too expensive, like if something calamitous happens, couldn't they just dissolve the company and leave Leominster picking up the pieces? And as a side note, why was Jim Whitney held in contempt of court in 2022?
All right, so there's a piece that I put into that they have to hold a surety bond. So if anything goes wrong, we grab the bond. So at some point they decide, we're done here. We've decided to take up pickleball in Florida or something. We have a surety bond in there that our lawyers prepare, and we get a chance to, to finish the project as proposed. So at any given time, we're not going to be left with a project that's half done. The worst scenario would be, fields or, soccer fields, or maybe, we bring back the sheep. I don't know, but no, we actually had sheep there. It was a wonderful thing. I loved it when there was sheep there. I thought it was the biggest economic development, tourism thing in the entire universe. But every day of the week, somebody called, cruelty to animal, and they kept calling, and they were living better than me. They had water, shelter, everything was down here. And then finally the guy's like, I can't. I'm spending all my time down here with the sheep, and I got a farm to run. We didn't have to pay for it. I thought it was the greatest. We didn't have to pay to mow the lawn. They did the whole thing. So does that answer your question? I don't know what the contempt of court thing is.
I'll answer the contempt of court thing. I'm a real estate developer, and anybody that's a real estate developer, there's litigation at one point or another. I suggest that you go pull it all up and see. Usually, what I've seen over the years is if there's litigation, it's usually somebody looking for something for nothing. That litigation hasn't gone through the full process yet. It is what it is, but I'll stand behind my record, take a look at anything I've done in any town, and I'll stand behind it.
All right, caller. Question, please.
Yeah, hello. I was on earlier. I must have got cut off or something. I called. So I asked a question about they're guaranteeing 300 plus jobs. How do you guarantee that when there's only a few races a year?
Well, I can answer that.
Yeah.
So we figure on the sports bar that there's probably going to be a minimum of 60 to 65 full-time jobs. Then we figure on the construction part of it, there's going to be around 150 jobs minimum. And then the rest of them will be part-time jobs based on the events that are happening throughout the year.
Correct. So the construction side, I heard that, union got involved and you guys guaranteed all the work will be for union members only. That's kind of a gray area, if you ask me. So that's only temporary, because you're not going to keep building for the rest of the job. So that's not 350 plus jobs a year. That's temporary, guys. So once the construction's done, those guys are out. Then you have winter. And the sports bar, you think it's going to run every single day? I mean, so you guys are you're guaranteeing 350 jobs, but that's just, it sounds really good for people. They're like, oh my God, we're going to get 350 jobs and I'll be able to work. Well, that's not really the true case, is it? And Dean, to follow up, I asked about, do you really think that I meant by going to the horse track you're going to get cancer? I'm talking about during construction, because once again I said no one does their jobs and there's always accidents. Actually, there's not accidents. It's human error. There's no such thing as an accident. So no, I didn't mean I'm going to go to a horse race and I'm going to get cancer for watching it. Come on, let's be realistic here.
Oh no, there are people that do believe that you're going to get cancer if you're on.
I'm clarifying that's not
Yes,
what I meant.
I get it.
I would hope that no one else means that too, because I mean it would be almost impossible, I would think, to drive on a field and get cancer.
Okay. So noted. I get it. If I misunderstood, I apologize.
So I think that we need to clarify with jobs, because people are all excited. I've heard moms at the meeting say, I can't wait for my kid to go work there. Well, you guys are kind of giving these false hopes, because you and I both know it's not going to be 350 jobs a year-round thing, correct?
It doesn't say that. If you look at the Spectrum report that's online, it lists out exactly where the jobs are going to come from and how long they're going to be. I've never guaranteed.
Email, it says right on the thing that you guys sent out, not you, but Bay State, and at the meetings I've been to, it says that they guarantee 300 jobs. It's all over the internet. There's hundreds of posts about it.
Well, he just
Is that false information?
he just explained it, and he just gave you the breakdown. So
Okay.
I don't know what it said, but I think he corrected it. If it's wrong, then he just corrected it and told you what they are.
That's what I was trying to get at, because people are saying, oh my God, it's going to be 350 jobs a year for people to actually work now. Well, that's not really the case.
Okay.
I mean, and Dean, you always, you built your name as the mayor, you know, you've been here 32 years, and I get it. You want the information to be out, but your people that have elected you for 32 years, not everyone is against this and not everyone is for it.
Correct.
But you keep saying, well, you know, this, that, and the other thing, and we need to look at this, but you're overlooking the fact of people aren't happy with this. And I think that really needs to set in, because, you know, who knows? You might not be mayor forever. You know, and I don't.
Well, look at the vote for the referendum for the casino. It was 63 or 65%, so it passed. That meant there were 40-something% that didn't want the casino. I get it. I totally get it. Listen, I'll give a quick story. When I tell this all the time. I went to the police academy. First day, we're all lined up, khakis, hair's all cut. We're sitting there. Lieutenant Lavash comes out. He's the drill instructor, and he says, I need a volunteer. 3 guys raise their hand. 1 guy comes up. They say to Frank, here, here's an old style dictionary. It's this thick, this big. The thing, I don't know how much it weighs. They hand it to Frank. Sit down. Thank you. We get up. It's time to use the restroom. We got a 2-minute break. Frank, take the dictionary with you. He's like, what? Yeah, take the dictionary with you. For the entire academy, Frank took the dictionary with him. When we went to swim, he wrapped it up. When we ran in the morning through the streets of Moody Street and Waltham, Frank wrapped it up and took it with him. Graduation day, Frank had the dictionary. And it's always a lesson that's been instilled in me forever, which is one, and this was the, you figure it out pretty quick. Make sure you know what you're volunteering for, and number 2, get the entire story. You're a cop, you show up, there's an accident, she says it's his fault, Marty says, no, it's her fault. Well, if I just gave the ticket to Marty based on what she said, How do I know? I listen to all sides of the story, right? All I'm trying to do is get the information out. If there are people in opposition, now, if you go there to dump the Fairgrounds thing, all I'm looking is factual information I can share with everyone. Now, go to that site, and if you want to tell me that that's factual information, that's fine, but I'll invite, so the very person, and I say Mike Preston, because I had my first conversation with Mike, and he still continues to post things. He continues to say things, and I'm like, okay, it's time to back it up. He's the person that generates everything on the website. I've invited him in. Let's see if he comes in next week, and I'll go through the same thing that I just went through with you, with these people. Same thing.
Well, hold on, I'm not posting anything. I'm just saying that Bay State is saying 300 jobs, and I was just trying to clarify
Right.
that.
I get it.
Because he just said it's only going to be 100 something workers.
Yeah, I don't know. He just explained it to you, so I assume that's the official position.
It is, okay.
Yep.
So, I mean, I don't know, other than that, I just, I don't know, I hope it's a lot of ups and downs just for people to make money over horse racing, you know?
Yeah, it's a big risk, because they got to go through this whole process. I don't know, that's not my gig, it's not my business, but...
It's a huge risk at the expense of you not being liked anymore, Dean. And I mean, your reputation is more important, I think, to you than this stupid horse racing. I would hope so, Dean.
Well, let me just tell you. So what if I came out and immediately said, I'm against this whole thing? There are a lot of people who want this. There are a lot of people who want this in this city.
I get that. So I get it, and I understand that the city of Leominster, the people of Leominster don't have a official vote. It's you and the council members. Well, I think that if you got a serious, put a thing out there, a vote on a realistic vote on who's against it and who's for it, and you as the mayor put up and you post it so everyone can see, so it's transparent. Say, look, there was 50, however people we have in Leominster, and you say, look, here's the facts, people. We have more people for it than against it. I think we're going to go for it. And if it's the opposite way, then I think you should do the right thing.
And the people on the other side say the same thing. If you put it out there, you'll find there are more people for it than there are against it. I get it. Listen, one more time. I'm trying to bring the information. I have, and so does every city councilor, elected official, have a responsibility to bring you the information. I invited them on to explain to you what their proposal is. There can't be anything wrong in a democracy with explaining to you, inviting them on and explaining this is what the project is, and this is the process that they're going to follow, and to take questions. If you're offended by that, then I don't know what else to say. I think that's part of what it is. That's the problem today, is you cannot find all the information anymore, because even the newspapers, today you can't find a full story anywhere. I try to find out what was in the House bill for the budget today. You can't find it. I cannot find a list of what is proposed, what got passed. I can't find it. So you're mad at me because I'm bringing you the information. I invited the people who are proposing the project. So I don't know what else to say. But we've been on long enough, and there are other people calling. So I appreciate your call. All right, if we can get some more calls, and then if not, then we can wrap it up. And let's see if there's any more in here. It's not just board and plastics. It's Mill Cities are not all plastic. And let's see. He's ignoring the rest of the researchers, whatever that means. What does Dean get out of this? Michael isn't the only. So again, just to kind of, let's take another call, and then we're going to have to wrap it up. Caller, welcome to the show, and thanks for calling.
Two horse races a year, a sports bar, and maybe some TVs to watch other races going on. You can bet on that. Is there going to be slot machines? Is there going to be gambling tables like blackjack, roulette, or whatever it is? More importantly, is there going to be a slot for online gambling as well?
I'll answer that to the best of my knowledge, because Bay State is going to run that. But this is going to be, that is one thing that I did want to say. We keep talking about horse racing. Horse racing is 6 days out of the year. The rest of the time, this is a facility for all kinds of events. So I've never understood why we had to spend so much time talking about the horse racing part of it. But as far as the gambling, it's going to be a simulcasting venue from the sports bar. That's what the legislation says right now. It gets done on your phone, on your phones.
So he asked, is there going to be like roulette wheels and
No.
that
No.
stuff? Okay. So slot machines,
No.
nothing like that. Okay. Is he still there?
Online gambling?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sports betting?
Yes, on your phone, on your phones.
Right.
Can,
Yep, something like that.
something like that. That's the major revenue.
Correct.
That's the major revenue, but it sounds like maybe be more clear about that.
Yep.
Well, I think in defense, they've been trying to get the message out of exactly what that other piece was, but the focus seems to be on the horse racing.
And it's all on the website. The website explains it all. There's the Spectrum report that says everything. It's all on the website. And if you need questions answered, I'll gladly sit down and answer them for you.
Okay? All right, thank you. And I don't know what questions we didn't answer, but I know that you're available if, you
Yeah.
know, if people want to. So I just, in case somebody joined us, my only intent was to allow the very people who are proposing the project to present the project. And I think that's what we accomplished today. Then to explain a little bit about, you know, the technical end, which is there's an extensive review of this project, which could be anywhere from 18 to 24 months. That's the point I was trying to get out here, because I do believe that's a responsibility to get that correct information out. People can decide how they want, where they feel. So people are mad at me because, like, you're pushing this project because I invited them on, or actually they asked to come on so that they could explain the project and take phone calls. Well, I you know, caller, we'll take another call. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have any opposition.
We can't hear him.
Relentlessly attacking.
I'm sorry, go ahead. What?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hey, yeah, I just want to talk to the opposition. I mean, it's the same 20 people who relentlessly attack anyone with anything positive to say about the fairgrounds, especially on Leominster tonight. And people are afraid to get involved and say positive things because they're going to be villainized and attacked.
Okay, I mean, yes, it's an emotional issue, yeah. I mean, this is what I said, is you should be able to, anybody should be able to say, I'm for it or I'm against it without anything. I mean, it's just like, okay, you know, we'll have this conversation, kind of like arguing about politics, but you're right, it shouldn't continue into a forum where it gets...
The consensus in Leominster is very positive. It's the problem with the same 20 people.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to 5:45 and then we'll wrap it up. So if there are any more calls, go ahead. And again, I think there was a show, Flap, that's Fitchburg, Leominster Politics with Kevin Cormier, and they did a show, and I don't know if we showed it here, but we'll show that. I've been asked to show we found the video of when they were proposing the baseball fields. People have asked to see that. Full transparency, we'll show that whole meeting for people so they can see kind of what was going on, what was different about that than this, and the same kind of conversation. Just put out all the information. My thing is, give me all the information, I'll decide, right? Caller, go ahead, question.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm calling in to ask a couple questions, and the first one is, I just want to know why the city keeps entertaining offers to quote unquote develop the landfill, and why we can't just leave it alone. The second question is, why is Richard Fields not present? I was kind of looking forward to asking him some questions tonight. And my third question is actually for Jim Whitney. Why would you want to build apartments so close to a dump? Thank you.
Okay, how do you want to take those?
Well, I'll tell you what, the Crossroads site, is probably the most monitored or tested site probably in the entire universe. That's that property that you're talking about where the apartments would go. Because if you remember back, we were going to lease it for the school, and there were all this, again, talk about toxins and stuff leaching into the property, and they buried stuff. So there was so much, I don't know, all those reports still available, but it was like the most tested site around, and that's where the apartments would go. And why wouldn't we just leave it the way it is? I mean, we could. We've had other proposals, but I think it's my responsibility to share as proposals come in, to share them with you. We took the baseball fields and we shared that. I can't imagine what I'd be accused of if somebody came in with a proposal and I didn't share it. When it got to a certain stage, there are other people been kicking tires. But we could just leave it. You're right. We could just leave it, the way it is. But I do think I'm not the king here where I could say, yeah, your proposal gets to be heard by somebody or nothing goes on the landfill. I don't think that's fair either. But why would you want to put apartments on
As far as the apartments, I never had a problem with being right next to the landfill because of the testing that's gone on and all the neighbors that have lived there my entire life. I've been in the city forever. I was more concerned about what was going to go on the landfill. I wanted to know what an end use was, because I wasn't going to spend all the money to build apartments at a certain value, and then something went there that would take that value away and I couldn't rent them. So I spent the time, instead of just coming in and building them, I spent the time to try to find something that, one, I was looking for that would stay green, and something that everyone could use. And that's how I ended up with this proposal.
Okay, thank you. And the other thing is, if you build apartments, they're going to go on at the mechanic.
Right on
nobody's going to pay all that money.
I think what people don't understand is 28 years ago when Crossroads was approved, it was approved on a special permit to build the 2 office buildings that were there, and it was originally 140 units, and it was supposed to be in 2 buildings. But since the Keller Williams building was built, that took 20 of the units away. So there's 120 permits that are still part of that special permit that are still in effect. We have opinions from the city solicitor that can be built, and there's no approval special permit process that needs to be done. All we have to do is get the architectural plans done, go in for show that those plans work, and we can pull a permit and build those units, and they will come right out onto Mechanic Street.
All right, caller, we got time for one more call. Caller, your question, please. Hi.
I was wondering how often you guys will be working directly with the EPA and the DEP for releasing different reports as the construction continues, and if things will be available to the public.
Yeah, good question. So in other words, as the work is going on, DEP going to monitor the construction when it's going on in EPA, and then will those reports, whatever they find, will those be public reports? Yeah. Is that the question? Yep. Okay, good question.
Yeah, so there will definitely be engineers and environmental scientists during construction. This is basically like surgery. We'll be looking at this and carefully, where the cap does need to be disturbed will be done extremely carefully. This is not going to be like a messy operations by any means. So you'll have scientists actually monitoring air quality, looking to make sure that dust isn't generated that would migrate off the property, and also making sure that everything is buttoned up and the cap is properly sealed back at the end of that if there are any areas where they need to make those intrusions. So it'll be really carefully monitored in accordance with the permits.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming on. Thank you for the whole crew here. They worked real hard to get this set up today so that we could take the calls and rearrange the studio and everything. So thank you to all of them. And I think if you have further questions, you can reach out. And I think where the call said, let's keep this fact-based. If we keep it fact-based, I think that's just helpful for everybody, so we're getting because there were good points tonight that were brought up by people that aren't for it, that help us all think a little better about, about that. It answers other people's questions by asking those. So they're available, this team, you could set up another forum. You could do it, there's a podcast here, you could do a podcast. There are many ways to communicate, what you're trying to do. And the same thing is, so if people have facts on the other side, like you say, I picked people. Why are you picking Mike Preston? Because he's the first guy that generated the first material. He seems to be the person compiling all the or all the things about, this thing that over the concerns. So I'm inviting Mike Preston on. I couldn't find his phone number. I can't find where he lives. I'm trying to find him so that I can invite him on for next week's show, and then he can point out the sort of factual things that he has learned along the way about this project. So anyway, thanks for watching, and good night. God bless you. Remember, the world is run by those who show up, and that's why we got to show up. Good night.
Inside Leominster is brought to you in part through the generous support of N.P. Crowley Company Incorporated and by DeCarolis Insurance Agency Incorporated, DeCarolisinsuranceagency.com, and by Enterprise Bank. Enterprise Bank creates success. EnterpriseBanking.com.
This is LTV.